you live in an apartment yourself. How did you get into apartment living? Like, when did it all start for you?
Well, I think I had lived in a apartment in Sydney when I moved to Sydney. There's just thousands of strata units, all around Sydney, and you just can't help but I think you kind of look forward to living with you. You could live in a semi, you can live in one of those old terraces, right? And they're just so succinctly Sydney, and I think apartment living was just so much easier. It just. I think my first apartment, I lived in Tewkesbury Avenue, which is just off Darlinghurst Road. So literally 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes walk to King's Cross, to the King's Cross sign. And I lived in there with this woman and a couple of bloody cats. God, I didn't particularly like the cats. I'm not a cat guy, so. But it had a pool, and it was like 10 floors, and there was I think I was a young gay man, and there was just littered with homosexuals, and everyone was just jumping in between apartments. It was probably not a story you want to tell on the Active Insight. The Active Insight, there was lots of active men in that apartment complex. It's probably not a conversation you want to have. Yeah. But I mean, going and visiting from a perspective of dinner parties or cocktail parties, and there was lots of that going on. So that's kind of where my apartment journey started. And then when I came back to New Zealand, I lived in a little small low-rise. It was a unit block, so I wouldn't call that apartments, but. For the last 5 years, I've been in the same spot, and I really love where I live. I've moved actually 3 times within that 5 year tenure. So I was on the 5th floor, then I went up in the world and got to the 8th floor, and then both of those properties were sold. So I was looking, and I could only find something on the 2nd floor. So
didn't quite get to the penthouse then.
Well, it's got 9 floors. So, but it's funny. You don't really want to be on the 9th floor because it's the one floor that doesn't have a balcony overhang or an awning. It's all open, and you know how much it rains in our fair city. I just kind of wanted to stay in that. So the 8th floor, it was great, and yes. You give up the views now. The views that I see, I don't know if you know where our building is, but it literally runs parallel with the main Spaghetti Junction. Yeah. And literally, before I'd look down and see all these cars going everywhere. Now I can look straight in the passenger's window and wave at them.
Drive time, it'd be like a drive-through situation. So how long have you been in your current building for?
Yeah, 5 years. So the building is 6 years old. I just talked to one of the owners the other day. And she said, yep, Code of Compliance came through. I think it was the 6th of May, so it would have been 6 years ago. Yeah. And I moved in July, so it had been open for a year and a couple of months, and it's just a really lovely community. I don't know if you see a lot of apartment complexes, and you see a lot of body corporates and a lot of people. What do you see in terms of the different communities that you see? Do you see some people who really embrace the community, or they just see it as an apartment complex or a place to rent out? Is there like a happy medium?
We see such a massive variety because we manage a lot of buildings. We see buildings where people don't even know who's living through the wall, and then you see buildings where they have social clubs, they have whiskey clubs, they got book clubs, they got just all these things, and they get on really well with their neighbours, which is really cool. So is there a happy medium? Probably not, but I think that more and more people are getting into apartment living, probably at a younger age, because it's bloody expensive to buy a house. So we're getting a lot of seeing a lot of young first home buyers buying apartments now, and I think probably going to be some sort of movement around socialising more within your buildings, because the other thing that's happening too is a lot of these newer apartment buildings are being built with actual amenities in them. So not just a pool and a gym, but some of them are going to have a lounge, barbecue areas, places that you can book out, cinemas, etc. within the building, which makes it a lot more interactive. So that's what we see. We see a wide variety. And so what attracted you to not so much to apartment living, but what do you really enjoy about it?
But what attracts me, I think, well, one, I've got, my best girlfriend lives on she started on the 7th floor, now she's on the 8th floor. And you get to know people, right? And you can see why it's the most hatest thing. People do not like moving. They do not, they get used to their surroundings. They get used to driving their car into the driveway, and they like that thing. And then you've got to move, and you've got to change everything. You like the coffee shop. That you live where you live because you like where you live. And I like where I live because the people in it are really good. And literally, I just, I came here to obviously record this podcast episode, and I drove out, and the outgoing building manager was, "Hi, John," and one of the other ladies who's most of the people that I know are owners, and they go, "Hi, John, are you coming over for dinner tonight?" And it's just
that's cool.
It's just been really, and I think during our lockdown that from 2020 2021, there was a lot more of that. There was a lot more of people coming in and being bubbles, right? And I think for our first lockdown, we had probably 6 apartments of 1 or 2. So we kind of had a bubble of 6 to 8. We had the most remarkable parties. Yeah. And that just really brought everyone together under that cause. But some people get excited. I used to, in the first apartment, I had a second bedroom which I used to rent out. And you'd show all the usual people, and I'd say, there's the gym, there's the swimming pool, and I thought to myself, shit, I've been here 3 years, and I've been in the gym, I've been in the pool once, and there's a steam room around the corner, and I don't think I've been in that. Yeah. So so some people like the amenities, and some people like, for me it's community.
Yeah, it is funny though that the amenities, like you mentioned, they get used bugger all by people in the building, but they're a real selling point. But then when you get there, you don't have time to use them, or you'd rather just go to the gym that you normally go to down the road or whatever. So it is funny that we know of some buildings where they've actually filled in the pool, or they've changed the gym into a meeting room or something like that because they either weren't getting used, they cost too much for upkeep, etc., etc. So it's quite, I guess it's amazing how these buildings evolve and things.
And you're right. Some of the owners kind of feed me some of the numbers, and it's bloody expensive having a swimming pool.
Yep.
Very expensive to run.
Yep. And
even the gym, something breaks it. I guess a lot of those weights and things are on sort of lease plans, but still, I don't know. But I think that's some of the things you really don't, as a renter, you don't really get to see those numbers behind some of the things that the body corporate are dealing with. And really, all of those body corporates deserve a bloody prize. It must be a prick of a job.
Yeah, I think it's a tough industry to be part of. You're dealing with people's expectations, and that's one of the things we tell our team. As much as we're building managers, we're actually there managing people's expectations, and some people have really reasonable expectations, and some people have really unreasonable expectations. And it's just one of those things that it is about the people for us, and it's about when we bring people into our company, we make sure that they're a certain type of person that we think is going to add value, but also get on with people really well. They've got to have a personality. You can't just be a dullard in this industry or in this company. You've got to have something about you, and you've got to be able to get on with people, have a chat with people, be a problem solver. And so we see a lot of building managers around town that don't last because they don't know how to look after people and manage people. A building by itself, is it's a fairly static sort of object, but it's not until people get into that building that you start having the fun or the problems, and that's that's the space that we live in. So I
think we've just sort of installed because we're kind of close to K Road, and there's all sorts of different people that are living in around our particular building. And they're literally, we put a little policy on because people would follow people in through the door. And so we put some,
shoulder surfing, they call it.
Shoulder surfing, we would just call it tailgating. Yeah. So people would come in, people that used the little swipe card, and you got used to saying to people, "Can I just see your little swipe card as you follow in?" And I had these, clearly a renting couple. They said, "What for, mate? What for?" And I said, "Well, I care about the community that I live in, which is making sure that you actually live here." And they went, "Oh, that's That's pretty cool.
When you put it like that.
You know, when you put it that way, and it's because, you know, the mailroom had been broken into a lot of times, and then packages get stolen, and so yeah, I think when you're talking your home, and if you view it as, well, I want to protect the environment that I live in, you do take a different approach.
Yeah, home and community. You know, those are two words. Home, yeah, you do get that mentioned a lot around apartments, but community is a term that's not used as much as it should be. And we've got a few things coming up later on this year that are going to sort of help to build that community within, not just across, not just in each building, but across our entire portfolio of buildings. We've got some ideas coming up that we want to try and be able to connect people across our buildings at a business level. So we're looking quite forward to that.
Well, there's a question for you. If you were looking at a particular building that didn't have good engagement, what sort of community building thing, to put you on the spot, what sort of community building things do you find has worked in some of your apartments?
So the first one that comes to mind is people that don't know their neighbours don't know either the person or what they do. So I think there's a real opportunity there to be able to engage with your neighbours and say, oh, you know, what do you do during the day? Oh, I'm a I don't know, business coach or something like that.
Yep.
Oh shit! Well, I've got a friend who needs a business coach. There's a referral, you know, or so I'm a teacher. Or what school do you teach at? I don't know, some sort of just some way that you can actually get people engaging with each other that could possibly lead to who knows what, you know, just business relationships, referrals, and what have you. So, yeah.
Do you find? I know we've got a building Facebook page or Facebook group, and I tell you about the poor old moderators, because you know, and of course not everybody's on Facebook, right? You know, there's some people are, and some people are on it, you know, a lot, like 5, 6, 7 times a day, and some people check it once a week.
Yep.
And it's amazing. So, I mean, I have seen some pretty horrific, you know, where the moderators said no more comments are available on this particular post. You know, you can see how the commenters in a New Zealand Herald Facebook post about COVID. It's you know, you do run that risk. But in saying that, it's a really great place to say, hey, this is who I am. I'm a human being. And people put a notice in there saying, has anyone got any car park free for these couple of hours? Don't mind paying or what have you. It's amazing how people say, yeah, sure, that's fine, and everyone advertises their properties for rent or what have you. So whereas in the complex, I own an apartment in a complex out in Margate, and I know they don't.
Right.
And they don't have that, and it's. I kind of say, is there a way to kind of, you know, I say to my tenant, Have you been in touch with the building manager? No. You know, have you gone and knocked on his door? I don't even know where he lives. Does he live on site? Yeah, it's in the little booklet. We create a little welcome pack for you for when you moved in, and blah blah. It's all in there.
I
didn't read that.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, you get it, right? You do your best to provide them the tools to kind of go and get help, because it's faster for you to go to the bloody building manager on your building rather than me to go and have to ask the building manager to come back to me and send it to you. It's like, for God's sake, use your noggin. But anyway, that's why I think the Facebook group is handy. But you're right, you've got to have enough people who are willing to invest time into moderating some of those comments.
The moderation is the key, but you know, that can become a part-time job if you're not careful. We've been in a few new buildings where they've said, oh, we want to start up a Facebook page, what do you think? And I said, from personal experience, do not do it. You know, next day they've set it up, and it's like, but they kind of build a rod for their own back, because they start getting lumped with all these you know, comments and you know, people being nasty and stuff. But I also don't think that, you know, aside from what you were talking about before, I don't think any big problem is ever solved on those Facebook pages. You know, it tends to be a place where people go in and out of and make a shitty comment, and you know, and it can be quite negative. So yeah, I just advise people to be very careful when they think about setting up a Facebook page for their building, because it can go rotten really quickly. Yeah. I don't know about other social media. I think Facebook's probably the only one that's actually universal for that sort of thing.
Well, in our particular building, I believe we have one of the highest owner-occupier rates in Auckland.
Great.
We're like 66%, I
that's
think,
good.
which is very high.
Yep.
Actually, I don't quote me on those numbers. I really don't know. But it's really cool. We have quite a few older, we have quite a few older people, owners. And for me, that's just testament of, here we are almost living in K Road, and we have these, older people, and they just love it because they love being in a thriving, different environment. Yet one particular lady, she's like, I come over and she said, "What are you doing?" I said, "What are you doing?" I'm on drug watch. I'm looking and observing all the people coming in, because there's a few other apartment complexes which are a bit divey. In that particular, hope that none of yours.
No.
And it's literally, she's out there and she's writing down notes for the body corporate to like feedback into to the police and what have you. And that's community, right? Right there is people putting their hand up. This time she wasn't part of the body corporate. She put her hand up and said, "Yeah, I'll do that. I'm in a good posse to do that."
Yeah, that's right. And I think back in the 80s, that used to just be called Neighbourhood Watch.
Yeah. You put a sticker on the wall thing.
Everyone had the sticker, and that was the thing back then, and that's how people kept a lookout for each other. And I think that's kind of really died off, in the last sort of 10, 20 years. And hopefully there can be a resurgence of that sort of same community spirit and neighbourhood spirit in these towers. One thing we like to call them is a vertical village, right? So that's a brand name in itself that we're going to be adopting at some point in time. But vertical village gives you, it's a snapshot of it is what it is. It's because these apartments are the larger ones. They're almost like a subdivision or a suburb. Because there's 500 apartments. You imagine a subdivision of 500 houses. It's a big area, and all they've done is sort of flip it up on its end, and there's a vertical village.
Yep.
But a village ain't a village unless there's that community aspect to it, which is hugely important, like you were saying before. I was going to ask you if there's anything you do not like about what are the negatives about living in an apartment?
The negatives about living in an apartment for me is not being able to have a barbecue. So admittedly in our complex, we've got an atrium area which is open, but that's where there's been lobbying to the body corporate to say, we need to kind of bring our people out of the apartments, and I know they've put some AstroTurf down, so there's and they to look for some outdoor furniture. So that's kind of the coming together, like when you said before, some people have media spaces or whiskey clubs or book clubs. I mean, I don't know of any of those things, but somewhere where they'd have the Christmas tree and there's a few kids in the building, and that's great. Having some Christmas spirit and dressing the foyer with the Christmas trees and lights and things like that. But yeah, the insurance thing of not being able to have a barbecue on your balcony. In Sydney, I'm pretty sure that everybody had a bloody barbecue.
Yeah.
But in New Zealand, apparently, it voids your insurance. If But anyway, let's. I don't want to get to the nitty gritty. But I mean, I have had people below me or above me. I'm like, that smells very much like barbecued beef. Yeah. But that's the only thing I think is. I'm not much of a gardener. I mean, I ride a 50cc scooter, so I don't really have any parking issues. I have a little zapper, and I just park within the underground area. Yep. But I can imagine if I had a car, and it's bloody expensive.
It's expensive. Yeah.
We're talking, because So other dislikes. I mean, for me, I like it the fact also that our building is double glazed, and I don't really have any heating or warming issues, but yeah, I mean that's probably the only thing that's not been able to have a barbecue, or maybe I just need to break the laws. Give my little what's that little barbecue number?
Yeah, get the little Weber Q
out. There we go. I'm set. Right.
Yeah, for sure. But Kiwis and their barbecues, we all like to have a barbecue and that, and to be told that you can't have one because it might void your insurance is a bit of a.
Well, it's actually got nothing to do with the tenant, right?
No, that's right.
So the I guess the tenant's perspective is, I mean, does it say that in the body corporate agreement you can't have barbecue? I don't think so.
You don't want to find out the hard way.
No.
Just finally, do you think are you a long-term apartment dweller, or do you think at some point you'll move into a house, or what's your thoughts around that?
I like the city lifestyle. I think if anything, I would look at a loft.
Oh yeah.
Look at a loft apartment. Still going with the apartment, but just having a little bit more space. and there's some loft apartments around Emily Place,
Yes.
just up there on the right hand side. Some New York style lofts. I don't think I'm a suburbia guy. I grew up in Castor Bay, and it's nice to go back to visit. But bloody hell,
You miss the energy of the city, right?
and it's people say to me, I've always lived on the motorway side. I've always looked down. People go, don't you get but there's cars. It's like, people are going somewhere. Isn't that good? And there's a little bit of background noise, but you kind of get used to it. And as I say, with that double glazing, doesn't really have a problem. We can go there for visits.
Yeah.
But I ride a 50cc scooter and you don't, and you catch the bus. Let's live in the city, bro.
That's right, exactly. Yeah, no, that's cool. It's good to hear people's different opinions on that, because it's everyone's got a different idea. People that live in the suburbs, I'd never live in a bloody apartment, too small or whatever, and I don't live with people all around me. And it's like, but a lot of people love it. And I think what you said before about some of the older crowd, potentially it's their next step might be a retirement village or a place like that. So
Totally.
Whatever's good for the gander, I think, and good.
Well, hopefully I've added some active insights to the Active Insight podcast. Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for coming on. It's been good to have a chat with you, especially the fact that we've got something in common with the apartment side of things. So I do appreciate the insight on this occasion. Thanks, John.
Welcome.
Cheers.